everyone. Welcome back to the American Experiment Podcast. My name is Grace Keating. As always, I am here with Kathryn Hinderacker.
Good morning, Grace.
Good morning, Kathryn. How's your week going?
Good.
Yeah?
It's going well. I moved into a new house over the weekend, so very exciting. We've only spent like 2 nights there so far, but my stuff is everywhere. Like nothing's in its proper place, like anywhere in the house. So trying to get ready in the morning is like digging through stuff and, trying to find my socks and they're somewhere. Like I have no idea. So yeah, every day so far is kind of an adventure, but it's been good. It's very nice to be in a house versus like a really tiny little box of an apartment.
Yeah, that is so. How's your dog adjusting?
Not well, I would say. Like he's he's okay. He's just barking a lot. He has never used to bark. Like really pretty quiet guy. Now, whenever we leave, he barks, which is really annoying. So we'll have to work on that.
Does he still have a TikTok account?
Yes, but I have not posted in quite a while.
Oh, sad.
I didn't really take off.
Posted.
Yeah,
I think it's active again.
I wasn't making like the big bucks yet, and so I got a little, sidetracked, a little behind, but I think I should go back. I should try again.
I think you should too.
How about you? How was your weekend?
It was good. Yeah. I don't know. I have like weekend amnesia. Every time I get asked that on this show, I'm like, I don't know. It was a couple days ago.
Oh, well,
I did something.
We're like neighbors now, sort of.
Yeah,
we live in the same area, so we should, next weekend, we can go somewhere and then we'll have something to report back.
Yeah, that's a great idea.
Show me the hot spots.
We're like
suburban Twin Cities.
Oh, yeah. We're like 6 minutes away. Like, I was like,
yeah.
It's pretty crazy. Establishing this little conservative hub in
exactly.
In the Twin Cities. Anyway, speaking of nothing.
Conservative matters.
Speaking of Governor Walz, let's talk about
That's a good segue.
Thanks. Let's talk about the private school choice nonsense, or not school choice. The private school nonsense he is pushing right now. If you've been living under a rock and haven't heard the news, this is like the hottest story in Minnesota.
It's crazy.
I feel like, right
It
now.
went
It's
wild
blowing up
last week.
online. Yeah, well, Kathryn Wigfall wrote a post on our website, and I got like 30,000 views in 3 days just from people Googling this issue. So basically, if you haven't heard, Governor Walz in his budget proposals is trying to cut all of the non-public funding that the state gives to non-public schools, and this has been in place for over 50 years, and it's kind of a mean-spirited attack that he's doing right now.
Yeah, it's basically funding that allows private school kids and homeschool kids to do things like use buses, like transportation, getting your curriculum materials and things like that, as long as they follow certain guidelines, like they're not religious or things like that. The state will pay for them because they believe, obviously, like you matter as a kid if you go to private school just as much as public school or you're homeschooled. So that's the kind of stuff he wants to cut. And I just find it very ironic because I feel like whenever education funding is on the line, the big teachers union thing is fully fund education. We need to fully fund education. And now Governor Walz is here like, homeschoolers? Nah, like who cares? No, this is education.
Yeah.
These kids don't deserve to have an education, but the public school kids exclusively do. Like, it's so strange.
Yeah.
I don't get it.
And it makes such a big difference to the schools who do benefit from this policy that, again, has been around for decades and decades. It is a very, I'd say it has, like widespread support. No one's really had an issue with it until now. Apparently he's proposed this in the past, according to Bill Walsh. He says, they've tried to use this funding before as a bargaining chip.
Yeah.
And it's really frustrating because then Republicans have to give up things in their negotiations just to get to keep this thing.
Yeah, go in and defend something that so obviously is worth, spending the money on.
Yeah.
We talk all the time about things that they can cut in the budget. There's so much that he could choose to cut in this budget, and he chooses private school and homeschool funding because he knows the Republicans will go to bat for that, and then they'll have to use that in their negotiations for coming up with a budget. So it's really, it's lame.
Yeah, it's really scummy. And it's great to see how many people are upset about it and how much attention it's getting. We'll see where it goes. It's also frustrating. Like you said, it's not going to. We're not paying for religion textbooks at Catholic schools. You know what I mean? It's sometimes it's we're gonna use the state funds to pay for our school nurse or our school counselor.
Yeah, this like standardized
items.
tests,
yeah,
so that those kids can take the same tests. like what the MCAs or whatever.
Yeah.
This would give them $0 to do that. They want to pull that funding so that they'd be forced to pay for all of that on their own when it's a state mandate that you take those tests. So,
Well, and especially when it's such a small percentage of the education budget, too.
Right.
Like, we talk about this a lot on the show. Education is the state's biggest category of spending, and it's only going up. Got to fully fund it every single year. We
Yeah.
can never quite reach that. But like cutting this, it's less than 0.5% of that education budget. So like if you're thinking, oh, we've got this deficit, we got to do everything we can, cut everywhere we can to really get that. Like this is not what's going to do it. That is not the purpose of this attack.
No, it just goes to like further demonize kids that are in these situations too, whether for whatever reason. There are so many reasons a child could be in private school or be homeschooled beyond just, their parents have enough money to send them to private school. I think that's what he's trying to make it out to be. Like, just those rich kids going to private school. That's not most students who are in those systems, of course, you know? And so to demonize that whole group of people and say, they're not as worthy as like public school kids because we like public school unions, like that's basically what he's saying, is really absurd. I mean, there's people of all kinds that have to go to different schools for lots of reasons. And it affects all of those people too.
Yeah. Well, and this is not unique to our state, this idea of the state giving money to non-public schools. Iowa does it, North Dakota, South Dakota, Wisconsin, 24 other states have provisions for non-public, transportation aid. So again, rather than having this tiny little private school or tiny little charter school figure out how to set up a busing system, that's hundreds of thousands of dollars. I mean, it's they say, we'll let them use the public school across the road already has a busing system. We'll let them use it after they drop off the public school kids.
Right, exactly.
These no-brainer measures that he's going after.
Yeah, to make education accessible for a kid who needs to go to a specific private school for whatever reason. And often it's just to help those kids that are the future of our state, Like if you want to go to a specialized private school because you're really good at math, or maybe you have a disability and you need some extra help in a certain area, whatever it might be, all of those things are going to create better outcomes for Minnesotans in the future. So I think it's a worthy investment and small. It's not that much money.
Yeah. And if you do want to take action, there's a lot of letter writing campaigns, email campaigns going on. Just Google it. I think the Minnesota Catholic Conference has something up. But take action on this.
Yeah, absolutely. It affects a lot of people. And speaking of Tim Walz, that one worked.
That one made more sense.
Okay, so he's still on his tour. We have to cover the tour stops now, every time it happens.
A little update, yeah.
He's still on his tour. Yesterday, or wait, when was this posted? No, this was
a few
last
days
week.
ago. Yeah.
He did a town hall in Houston, Texas with no other than Beto O'Rourke. Do you remember that guy? And as Bill Glodden helpfully reminds us, his name is actually Robert.
I forgot about that. Robert. This is such a throwback. Was he 26? No, 2020. So he was running for president.
Yeah.
No.
Yes. 2022. I forget how many times he's failed.
Okay. He was a candidate in 2016.
A failed bid for U.S. Senate, a failed bid for U.S. president, and a failed bid for Texas governor.
Wow. He's not got a great track record.
So this is who Governor Walz is like tying his horse to. He's like, this guy.
He's someone I want to ally myself with.
But like, they do this. They take these failed politicians and as a way of thanking them for their service to the Democratic Party, they give them a nonprofit spot. Like Beto Roberts' spot with, what is this called? Powered by People. He works for some nonprofit now. Stacey Abrams, recently it was exposed how much money her nonprofit was getting from the government.
Oh my gosh.
With these Doge cuts. Stacey Abrams, of course, was unable to win. The Democrats said, thank you for your service. Here, go make a bunch of money at this nonprofit. We'll give you a bunch of government money in exchange. So anyway, that's just a side note.
Oh my gosh. And so the only reason anyone's talking about this town hall is because he's gone viral. There's this clip where he apparently calls for a shadow government to oppose President Trump. I think we'll just read this verbatim, and you'll hear right away that it's Walz talking. I've been saying this. I think we need a shadow government so that when all these things come up every single day, we have an alternate press conference telling the truth about what things are happening. And it got a lot of applause. Great applause.
And everyone's like,
whatever that is.
That is so
he
funny.
He said Trump.
That is so funny. Meanwhile, they're out there like, Trump is a fascist. Trump is insane. And Walz is like, I want a shadow government? What in the world? By the way, this is already kind of what he does. but the opposite. Like, he is so not transparent. He's the opposite of transparent. He's the least transparent. And you can ask anyone in the Minnesota press, nonpartisan press, will agree that it's extremely hard to get Governor Walz to talk to the press, to talk to people, to explain what's going on in his administration. He is one of the least available governors that we've had in a long time in Minnesota. So the fact that he is saying, oh, we need to tell the truth about what's happening. He is the number one person who does not tell the truth about what's happening. He doesn't talk at all about it, or if he does, as we know, it's often lies.
It's also like, that's just completely breezing by the fact that he's going on this tour around the country and is not home governing. Like,
No.
we've got some budget issues here, Governor. I don't know if you want to come in, work on those.
And like, he calls them all town halls, but you're only allowed in if you're on their list of like local Democrats. Okay.
These are like not very unfriendly crowds.
Right.
No, okay. All right. Thanks, Walz.
Well, I look forward to his next stop, which we don't know where it is because we are not on the Democrats' voter roll or whatever they use to
I'm
make
not
sure.
getting
So I
invited.
don't know. It always comes out afterward, and I'm like, wow.
What did he say at this one?
Interesting.
Yeah.
Let's see what happens.
Maybe we'll stop the tape next week and see what he says this week.
Oh my God.
Oh my goodness. Okay. This is a sort of a weird little bill that's going through the legislature right now. Apparently, the DFL is pushing to eliminate the fine for passing a school bus in Minnesota.
Yeah, they got
Why?
those like stop arms, that come out, and then you can't go. You can't go.
Right. Because you might
Right? You have to
hit it.
stop.
Yeah. Like if the school bus puts out its little stop arm, you have to stay there and you can't
Yeah.
pass them while the kids are getting on, because kids have been hit before in Minnesota because someone went around the school bus, and that's why we have this fine.
That makes sense. Why
But
do they
they're
want to
like-
get rid of it? That's what I don't know. No,
Yeah,
no
are
one said
kids-
anything
Are
about
our kids
it.
too safe? Was this
Yeah.
like
Are they too safe?
I
don't know.
why? Also, again, like we kind of have a spending issue, so maybe we shouldn't eliminate something that's bringing in
Yeah, are
money
you in the
from
position to
fines?
bring it to eliminate something that brings in money? I don't know. I am kind of. Maybe this is a hot take. I do think there should be fewer road rules in general. There's
Just
like
in general?
too many rules.
Too
yeah,
many
it's
stop
like
signs.
too much to remember. I think what there should be is like fewer rules on the road, transportation laws.
Okay.
Fewer people allowed to drive. Okay, they're letting too many people drive. This is like if there were just fewer people and we trusted them a little bit more, I think it would be better. I feel like what happened. This is my conspiracy theory, and everyone, let me know in the comments if you agree. Because driving post-COVID. They must have stopped doing the driver's test during COVID.
Didn't they?
I don't know. Someone tell me. This is like, I don't look into this because it's like a
I
conspiracy
genuinely
theory
think
I
that they
have.
did. Weren't they giving like only written tests or something? 'Cause
I
you couldn't
think
sit in a car
that's
with
it.
someone. Oh my gosh.
Totally.
No,
and now
this is-
no one can drive. They said yes to everyone. Have you been on the roads lately? It's deathly.
This literally happened. I think that they weren't doing the road, like the hands-on road tests
Yeah.
during COVID, and then the restrictions were lifted, and they had this huge backlog in Minnesota, and so I think they actually started passing more people who they normally would have failed because they just had to get through this backlog.
It's like so dangerous out
Fact
there.
check me
It's
if I'm wrong,
crazy.
but
yes,
I'm pretty sure I heard
tried
that.
to get your driver's license during COVID. I know there are like 16-year-olds out there. What happened? That actually would be such a like difficult experience. But that would also be less stressful. My behind the wheel, I was like the most nervous I've ever been. I was like, oh my God, I need to pass. And I did. Despite my mom thinking there was no way I would. So joke's on you. But yeah, no, I feel like fewer rules. Like the one they could really focus on that I refuse to abide by. I really abide by all the traffic laws, except for the stoplights of the on-ramps, like when you're getting on the highway.
I can't relate to this at all.
Okay.
I follow these. I really do follow these.
You can't. They're nonsense. There's just traffic on the highway going by normally. And then at random intervals, they'll have these stoplights on the on-ramp and they'll be like cycling through green and red and like you cannot watch those. You can't pay attention. It's nonsense. You can't just like be stopping traffic and not get on.
If you pull up and no one's there, you can ignore it. Like that's the rule.
Oh yeah, true. And then if someone goes, and then you can't create a situation if you've been waiting in this line. And I usually try and go a little bit faster, but it doesn't help at that point. You're just stuck in this line. I hate it. And I think this is a Minnesota
insane.
It's awful. They're stupid. I can't abide by such nonsense.
It's just to reduce the traffic on the main highway. Like, I can't agree with this.
I don't think it works.
hatred of this
I don't think it
rule.
works. I think I'm just sitting there for no reason.
That's fair.
I'm sitting there for no reason. The traffic's fine on the main highway usually. I mean, sometimes it's slow, but then if the traffic's slow, it's backed up past the stoplight anyway. So the stoplight, it doesn't matter because we're already all stuck in traffic.
We've gone so far off the rails.
I'm sorry. I think about this probably daily. So if there's anyone who knows why these exist, I think it's a Minnesota thing.
I will say in terms of like driver license reform, like I do think you need to pass a second driver's test when you hit a certain age, because there are so many like my grandparents drove until they were very, very elderly, and were they the best and safest drivers? No, and I love them dearly, but they should not have been driving, and I think that's the case for a lot of people.
Maybe be a couple throughout your life. Like, honestly, I don't know. You can forget things. There are a lot.
Once you can't see too well, or maybe turn your full body to check your mirrors and stuff. I think maybe we revoke that.
Yeah,
license.
so I can think of about 100 driver-related things they should do before the school bus arm.
Yeah, before they make our kids less safe for some reason.
Why? Let us
know.
What
a weird hill to die on. I don't know. Spend your time on something else, DFL.
Kill the kids.
Any final thoughts before we wrap up this? Guys, stick around. We're talking with Matt Dean in the second half in about just a few minutes here. American Experiment's newest policy fellow specializing in healthcare after our dear Peter Nelson's departure to Washington, D.C. Stick around.
Yeah, and Matt Dean, he's kind of like a ex-tweeter guy. If you might see him around. I thought he was going to be so like really snarky. Like, are you following him? No. You're not really on X.
No, yeah.
But he has such a hilarious X feed, and it's kind of like snarky and funny. And I was like, oh, this guy is going to be like a goon. No, he's so nice. So that's so funny. Like, I feel like his X personality is different from his real life personality. I've just enjoyed getting to know him outside of his hilarious tweets.
Yeah, guys. So stick around. You'll get to know him in just a few minutes here. Right now, I suppose we can kick things over to
absolutely. I'm done
interviewing Matt Dean.
So traffic for today. Traffic talk.
Let us know in the comments. Which traffic law would you change?
Yeah.
What would you institute if you're governor for a day?
Absolutely. Yeah. Thanks, guys. Remember, like, share, and subscribe. Send it to your friends. Help us grow.
Yeah. We'll see ya.
American Experiment is supported by thousands of individuals like you. To join the movement, go to www.americanexperiment.org and click the yellow donate button. From all of us here, thank you.
Hey guys, welcome back. Kathryn and I are sitting here with American Experiment's newest policy fellow, Matt Dean. Matt, welcome to the show.
Well, thanks for having me.
First appearance.
This is awesome.
And to the office. He's so new that his nameplate on his door still says Peter Nelson. And I don't know, like, how long are you going to be here before someone really gets around to updating that? Or are you going to be just kind of cosplaying as him this whole time?
Yeah, I think he may be back before the badge is back. I don't need one. I'll just
we'll put a temporary one, right?
Whatever people want to call me, that's great. But no, he's deployed in Washington, D.C., doing good work for the country. And we are excited that he is there. And it's a good thing he's there because there's a lot of things happening federally that are going to be impacting us in Minnesota. So that is very good that he's there.
Yeah. Our little American Experiment hometown hero out in D.C.
Absolutely. I did tell him he has to bring home preferably like a shirtless picture of RFK Jr., excuse me, signed. I told him I really want, like, because technically he's working under RFK Jr., right?
Yes.
And
so do you want RFK Jr. signed or the photograph signed?
I want the photograph signed.
Photograph signed? Okay. I think he could probably
I told him I thought that would be very funny. I just find that very amusing. He's like really probably our most like serious, like very intelligent policy fellow. He's so, like he takes everything he does really seriously and he gets the greatest job ever and it's with RFK Jr. I found that really, really amusing.
I wish you luck in that endeavor. I don't have much hope that it'll be carried out, but I'll be rooting for you because I think that would be a good addition to our trophy case here at American Experiment.
I think it's going to happen.
Well, Matt, why don't you start by telling us a little bit about yourself? You have a long career in Minnesota politics and, tell us the highlights.
Sure. Well, my name is Matt Dean, and I was recently brought on to the center as a policy fellow as Peter is heading to Washington, D.C. I am a fifth-generation Minnesotan. My wife, Laura, and I are raising the sixth generation out in the northeast suburbs where we've been. And I was elected first in 2004 in the House. I retired in 2019. And during that time, I focused a lot on health care. I served as chair of the Health and Human Services Finance Committee, as well as the Rules Committee and Majority Leader. So that's kind of my tenure there, focused a lot on healthcare. And now I'm trying to bring some of that experience here and focus in a little bit more on what we can do to improve healthcare in Minnesota with policies that really are coming down from Washington, D.C. right now, but a lot of great opportunity.
So what was it about healthcare that made you interested? Because when I think of the topic of like healthcare policy or healthcare in general and having to deal with it ever, I immediately, it sounds horrible to me. I'm like, oh God, it's so complicated. And just trying to even begin to talk about the subject of healthcare policy is so complicated that I can't imagine anyone loving this topic. So why did it stand out to you?
Actually, it's there was a Representative Fran Bradley was the chair of the committee from Rochester. And when I was a freshman, I didn't know anything. I was coming in, and he called me up and he said, would you consider ranking Health and Human Services as your top choice for committees? I'd really like you on my committee. And I thought, well, this is like, getting drafted,
Yeah.
This is awesome.
First round pick or whatever.
And so I was excited and I put it down, and then he put me on the committee. And I didn't realize that nobody wanted to be on Health and Human Services, and that he was just, looking for somebody to do a lot of work. And so he gave me a lot of work, and the more work, I didn't know that you could turn it down. So the more he gave me, the more I did.
Right.
And in about 15 minutes, I was an expert. So that's kind of how it worked. Fran Bradley tricked me. That's basically it.
And Fran is now our Rochester chapter chair. So shout out to Fran Bradley. Maybe it's part of a master plan of further tricking.
He's one of the greatest human beings to ever walk the face of the earth. He is awesome. And one of the reasons that in Minnesota, Republicans have really focused in on people with disabilities and people in Medicaid really look to the Republicans and not the Democrats for a lot of the work. Whether we're in the majority or in the minority, we tend to pull the laboring oar when it comes to people with disabilities, and a lot of that has to do with Fran and the legacy that he has.
So my biggest question is, when you left the legislature, did you then trick someone else into taking up your old position? And if so, who?
There's a lot of great people that focus on healthcare in Minnesota. And the chair of the committee, Health and Human Services, it's kind of a little different now. It's broken up, but healthcare is Jeff Backer. He's an EMT from Northwest Minnesota, and he's doing a great job. And lots of great people on the committee now and previously that really do take it personally. They meet constituents who really need the services. They connect with them. They, all visit their hospitals. They get out in the nursing homes. And so I'd say to a person, Republicans and Democrats take it very personally on the committee, and it's a very good committee.
It covers a lot, right? Like Health and Human Services. And there's federally, we just talked about HHS, but we have this, it's called the same thing in Minnesota, right? Health and Human Services, and it covers a bunch of different stuff. Like what all is in there? Is healthcare just one branch of HHS?
Well, there's healthcare, and then there's the delivery of healthcare through the counties that also has to do with other services, housing, and other mental health services. Lots of things that people need delivered through the counties. So it is a big part of our budget. And if you look at state budgets, you have E12, they call it, which is education, K through 12 plus pre-K. And Health and Human Services kind of compete for which is bigger.
Mm-hmm.
And traditionally, education has been the biggest spending amount. And this upcoming year, Health and Human Services will eclipse education as the number one spending area for the state. So that's why it's very, very important to keep the budget under control and to make sure the services go out and it eats the rest of the budget.
Yeah, and it's such a tough issue to message on, too, when you've got the two biggest items in your budget. It's education and it's healthcare. Those are two very popular issues, and, we live in a very caring state. And so when we talk here at American Experiment about cutting the budget, fiscal responsibility, it's such a tricky thing to message on because we want to spend as much money as we can on education and helping the poor and disadvantaged in our community. But at a certain point, you run out of dollars, sadly.
Well, and it's super important right now, and Republicans need to do this really to save Medicaid. they need to reform Medicaid because as it grows, it's eating every other area of the budget. And so if we don't do that, people are not going to get the services they need, and it's going to eclipse the rest of the budget. And when times get bad, if we go into a recession or if things get tough, more people go on Medicaid and more people need services. So as times get tough, that's where the budget really expands in that area. And that's why you can't have people ripping off the government for $200 million, $500 million, $1 billion, because we can't afford it. It's wrong. And the greedy can't take away from the needy, which is what's happening right now in Minnesota more than any other state. So as DOJ looks to pulling money out of the system and looking at where we're just pouring money down a rat hole and lighting it on fire. That is really where we are in Minnesota, because the areas of Medicaid waste, fraud, and abuse is kind of like this term that kind of flows out of your mouth. It doesn't sound like it means anything. So you got to really look at it and go, okay, where is that money going? What is waste? What is fraud? What is just misspent? And try to pull it back out so it can get deployed to people who need it and also to other areas of the budget, like the taxpayers.
Yeah, well, and what happens, we talked about this in the last episode when they, the Democrats did a press conference and they literally bring out someone in a wheelchair and say this person won't get health care, if you cut spending in HHS. Well, that's of course not true, so they use the most empathetic kind of case to justify, keeping all of this money in the pot when a lot of it's going to fraud and abuse. Do you have any examples specifically of things like that? Like what kind of waste, fraud, and abuse is happening in HHS or in healthcare?
Sure. Well, I think the thing that people are most familiar with is the Feeding Our Future fraud, which is basically just taking money from the government and saying you're feeding kids and then not feeding any kids. So that was $250 million. And actually, it's almost double that with other food programs. And Bill Glahn has done a great job of hammering on that and drilling down to figure out exactly what that is. And now you see people going to jail and saying, well, where's all the money? And unfortunately, you can't get it back.
Yeah.
So in areas like Medicaid, we see money that is coming into the state, it's going out, and then you say, Elon Musk says, well, there's all these people with Social Security numbers that are actually not U.S. citizens, that they probably shouldn't have Social Security numbers. They're being given Social Security numbers. Are they accessing Medicaid? The answer is yes. There are people who make too much money to be on Medicaid who are accessing Medicaid. There are people who live in other states who are accessing our Medicaid. There are people who are dead who are accessing our Medicaid. There are people on Medicaid who have more than one program. So they might be signed up with Blue Cross Blue Shield and they might be signed up with Health Partners. Both are getting checks for the same person.
Now that's smart.
So
if you're looking for ideas, that's the way to do it.
Yeah, so
I've never tried that
you
one.
say, well, what is the scale of that?
Yeah,
so
right.
What is the scale? How big is that? So if you don't like Elon Musk, and apparently a lot of people don't,
I think he's pretty funny.
If you walk through a parking lot and you see the defaced Teslas, but so you set that aside. Let's take Joe Biden. Let's take his word for it. So he said a year ago, he released the 2023 numbers that said that in 2023, we spent $100 billion on Medicare and Medicaid spending that went out that shouldn't have gone out. So $100 billion. So if
Out
you look
of
at,
how much?
If you look several trillion, but if you look at if you just look at the Medicaid portion in Minnesota, so if you look at just like how much of that is attributable to us, it's $900 million per year for our 130 million people on Medicaid. So $900 million per year is going out, not necessarily to people who are stealing it, but it's checks that are going out that shouldn't be going out. And people think, well, that can't be that high, $1 billion. And it is absolutely that high. I think that it is higher than that.
Oh my god!
And I think the important thing to remember too is that a lot of that money that's going into the system is coming away from people, say like middle class people who pay a lot in taxes in Minnesota, a lot, and could often use that money themselves to go towards things like healthcare. But instead, it's taken by the state government and redistributed to a lot of times people who don't need it.
And I think if you look at just the fairness issue for people, farmers, middle class Minnesotans that are just trying to pay for their insurance premiums, deductibles, and copays for families. People are making decisions. They're spending thousands of dollars per month on premiums, deductibles, and copays for their family. They know that they have to save money in case something goes wrong with the kids. They might need a CT scan to see if they need surgery or not. They know that that comes out of their pocket. So they put that money aside thinking, what if the kids need it first? So I'm going to delay my surgery so that my kids, if something goes wrong, we'll see, we'll roll the dice and say a prayer. However, so people who are here illegally, people who say, I don't have a job, but I intend to live in Minnesota, are automatically enrolled in Medicaid through our laws.
Wait, people who are here illegally are automatically enrolled?
Not people who are here legally, but say, I would like to become a Minnesota citizen.
Oh, okay. So
are automatically enrolled. It's called presumptive eligibility.
Oh.
And so they can then, if they qualify for Medicaid, can appear to the Mayo Clinic without premium, deductible, copay, or an appointment. But people who are saving, working hard in the area to try to get the care that they need, their insurance might not cover the Mayo Clinic.
Right.
Or they may not be able to get into the care that they need. So people that pay more and more get less and less, and people that pay less and less get more and more. And that system is unfair, and it's not going to work long term. So that's the kind of policies that we're working for. We've got a limited amount of resources in the state. We've got the best healthcare in the world. We've got the best doctors. We got the best clinics. We've got the best researchers and the nurses. But the way that we access it and the way we pay for it is unfair. So we want to make it more fair, and we want to do that in a way that's not Republican, it's not Democrat. It just makes sense, and that really builds on what we have here, which is great healthcare.
Well, sorry, go ahead.
I was just gonna say, what's the solution? Like, what? Drop the end. Like, how do we make the system better? It's expensive. It's complicated. Like,
well, I'll give you a bill that we are going to weigh in on this week. It's a bill being carried by Representative Backer in the House, and what it says is that in Minnesota, if you're on Medicaid, you don't get that money. You don't get the health care from the federal government. You get it from a carrier, so that it's managed care in Minnesota. So you sign up basically through a payer, Blue Cross Blue Shield, let's say, handles a lot of the Medicaid and a lot of the public programs in the state. So what we've said is that if you're attributed to that, you get a check every month based on this person showing up. We said is, hey, before we say that it's okay to give that money based on the fact that you're taking care of this person, how about if we just check that person exists?
Oh my gosh, that's not being done right now?
How about you just say, do you
exist?
This
is the new bill?
Yes, this is new.
This is the new
This
one?
is new. So how about you say, I'm here, I live here, this is my address, this is who I am, mark an X, sign it, send it back. Maybe it could be an email, maybe it could be something, just to say that I am here, I am alive, there's only one of me, and I'm only signing up for one program. And so that when we pay the bills to the carriers who do a good job managing care, to just say, hey, if you're going to take money for somebody for Medicaid, you have to make sure that they exist and that they're here. They're not in another state. they're not dead, and they're not signed up for more than one program.
Oh, but so I see. So the insurance provider, though, is also kind of incentivized to not care if this person is real. Is that right? So there's an incentive because the insurance carrier is getting the money from the government, right, on behalf of that individual. So is there any incentive for them to want to know if the person's real? Wouldn't it just be good for them if they made up a bunch of fake people and they got more money?
Well, nobody is saying that they are doing that, and I'm
Okay.
sure that they are
Allegedly.
not doing that. They are not
Disclaimer.
doing that. They are not doing that. However, they're trying to take care of millions of people, and in Minnesota, it's 1.3 million on Medicaid. We should just know that they're here, that they are not living in another state. They're not dead. And this does not get into eligibility of like whether or not they make too much money.
Yeah.
That's a different argument. But let's start by just making sure that they exist, they're alive, and that they're here.
I'm on board. I think I can support that.
Oh my God, the bar's so low.
That's what I keep thinking. We're not doing this already?
Well, we do for your employer. You probably have to say, "This is where I live. I'm not on my spouse's insurance."
Yeah.
People are used to that,
Right.
You
Yeah.
know, they might even have to turn in a marriage certificate. They might have to have a birth certificate to say, "These are our kids. This is who we are. This is where we live." People are basically kind of they've experienced that in their home, so they understand that probably makes sense.
Sure.
So that's one of the bills that we're kind of working on, and it really shouldn't be a partisan issue. I can't understand why some people would think that you shouldn't check whether people are alive and live here before you pay for their Medicaid. So,
Okay, so let me ask you kind of a bigger question then that I've been thinking about with fraud being talked about a lot this session. It seems to me that the issue of fraud and spending is really being talked about a lot on the right, and there's some pushback coming from people on the left. Why does that kind of divide exist in partisan terms? What's going on there?
well, I think there's probably some pushback on both sides.
Okay.
There are some people that you don't want to make it harder to make sure that you're not paying for things that you shouldn't pay for. So that's going to cost money for people to make sure that everybody that they're being paid for is legal, that they're where they're supposed to be, and that they're complying. Whether or not, I think there's let's try to be charitable. I'm sure that people on the left say we want to cover as many people as possible. If you say, well, yeah, but we don't want to pay for people who aren't here or who are dead or who make too much money, they say, well, yeah, but if we check, then maybe somebody who should be getting services won't get services, or they'll wait. But in Minnesota, we are just so far in one direction. It's so bloated that we're wasting so much money that we're actually wasting services, and we're hurting people in the middle who have to pay for their health care and can't get it because of premium deductibles, copays, and hassle. So just to give you an idea, you'd think Medicaid is a federal program, right? And it's about half the money comes from the state, half the money comes from the federal government. You can't pay for people who are here illegally, okay? So we pay for people with Social Security numbers who are here legally. Okay, so you'd think, well, Minnesota probably spends the same per person as most of the other states, right? We spend over 50% more than the average state on Medicaid.
Wow.
So you think we probably are a better state because we pay more for Medicaid. Maybe you get more services. Maybe it's a little better. Our doctors are better. Maybe it costs more. But should it cost 50% more?
Right.
And there's only 2 other states that spend more money than we do on Medicaid. So you think, boy, is that due to the fact that healthcare is so much better, or the fact that we put piles of money in Minnesota on tables and light them on fire? You know, maybe
That one.
maybe
Based on prior experience.
Yeah.
I'm going to go ahead and say the second one.
So if you're putting money on a table and lighting it on fire, that money could go to be helping people. It could go back to the taxpayers. It could go to lowering the premiums, deductibles, and copays of people who have to write checks for that money.
Well, and that kind of like no nonsense solution, very common sense proposal that they're working on at the legislature, and that inherent sense of unfairness that's being felt by the middle class right now. I think all of that contributed to why Trump won and why Musk is so popular, at least on the right now, because it's one of those issues that really hits your pocketbook. Again, if you're a voting middle class or even lower class person in the state of Minnesota who feels like you are getting the short end of the stick on this. I think that's what's driving so much of the political landscape right now.
Yeah, I think in middle class Minnesota is in a vice financially. I think that people in greater Minnesota, but not just in greater Minnesota, small businesses, farmers, people who have to basically make their money and cover their costs every month are feeling this intense pressure in the last 5 to 10 years has been increasing. And nowhere more than healthcare do people see those costs really making super big impacts on their families, whether you're taking care of an aging parent, children, or yourself. That pressure is really big. And when you're a small business owner, they always say, pay yourself first. You don't pay yourself first. You pay your employees healthcare first before you get paid. I don't care who you are. That's what you do. And those costs are escalating so fast that we just can't continue the way that we have been. It's like this alternate reality world where you think we can just continue to spend all this money and not see some results for that. And people are giving up access to care. They're giving, they might have to drive further to get care. It's costing too much. And people are saying, all right, that's enough. And I think that's where people are at in the last election, not just on healthcare, but I think on a lot of things that we're saying, like, okay, we got to be on team reality right now. I got to take care of my family. Those sound like, nice things, but we need to take care of
absolutely
our family.
Right.
Well, thank you, Matt.
Yeah, thanks for
We scratched the surface, I guess. I don't know.
We'll have to have you back when there's more updates in the healthcare world in Minnesota.
It always healthcare always reminds me of when I was in college and I was a political science major. Again, kind of nonsense, but I was a political science major. And so there was this one class where we were breaking up into groups and we each got a policy topic. And one of them was healthcare. And I was like, as long as I don't get that one, I'm good. Of course I get healthcare. So I'm formulating a plan in my head. And then I get there and I'm waiting for the moment when we divvy up the sections. And I right away jump in and say, I will go ahead. I'm comfortable public speaking. So I'll just take the intro. I'll grab the intro, introduce you all, set the stage, and then let you guys take it. And it worked. It worked. I did probably the least amount of work. And I'd say no one else really knew what they were talking about, but it was fine. I think we did well.
Now you're a health policy expert.
Now I'm an expert. Talking about it on a podcast.
So far.
Thank you so much, Matt Dean. Very fun to have you.
Great to be here.
We'll have you back. Everyone watching, remember to like, share, comment, subscribe, turn on notifications, do all the things to help us reach more people.
Please.
We will see you next week.